Hello, welcome to Lathe and Loom. My name is Cher, and this is a channel where I share a little bit about my fiber craft journey. So mainly knitting with both hand and machine knitting, some spinning, dyeing, and weaving thrown in on occasion as well. Today I have two finished objects to share with you, both my Móinéar pullover and the Andrea Mowry Harlow flip hat that I knitted with the challenge. And then I've got four main works in progress, or whips, that I will talk about as well. And then we'll round out with a little bit of discussion on the tees and tanks make along that I'm running here on the channel. Maybe give you a little summer knitting inspiration or crochet. I've tried to get some crochet patterns today too to share with you. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first pattern I wanted to share with you, first finished object rather, is the Harlow flip. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I did participate in her spring knit along challenge, which ran over the Memorial Day weekend, casting on that Thursday morning, and I bound off pretty late that Sunday night and actually was able to get it blocked and finished in time for the 12 noon deadline. So this is a brioche, two-color brioche pattern, and the neat thing about it is it's got, you start your brioche two-color with one color that becomes more prominent, and then that switches, and I think she calls syncopate. You syncopate the knitting. So it has two looks. It has this way, which for me was my main color, was the rust, or this, and then you can also flip it completely the other way, which is how I wanted it to show, with the main color is now, there we go, main color is now more prominent. So for the multicolor, the variegated yarn, I used some of my hand spun, and this was a fiber from Kim Dye's yarn, and this was the colorway The Last of Winter, and I'll pop a photo of what it looked like before I spun it, and it's 100% Falkland. I had 4 ounces in the braid, so I assume, and then I ended up with 48 grams left over, so around 52 grams. I mean, that may not be exact, but I had 48 left over from my spun. And I have a little bit of thick and thin. I would say this is a really good pattern to try your hand spun. I think it looks really good in the finished knit. I definitely, I don't know if this will show up, definitely have some thick and thin, and definitely there is some overspun. I don't have my face there. There we go. Definitely there's some overspun places. I actually had to untwist it at a few junctions. And what I paired it with is some yarn from Hillside Farms, which is 80% Cornwall wool and 20% bamboo. And here is that lovely skein. And I don't know, it's a little less orange than that is showing. It's more muted in person. I had a really hard time even on my Instagram showing photos of how the color is really coming through. It's a little more normal in the hat than it's showing up on here. But anyway, so this is I don't think I've ever knit anything with bamboo, and I found this very very, very pleasurable to work with. I mean, Cormo is beautiful. The bamboo just has this real silky luster to it. Of course, it's 80% wool, so you've got a nice spring to it. Anyway, and this is probably a little more, I think the pattern is written for worsted weight. I would say my hand spun was closer to DK and Sport in some places, and this is probably heavy worsted light Aran. And you can see again, the pattern's very, very forgiving. So if you're looking for something to try, a project with your hand spun, I have not knit a lot with my own hand spun. So it was kind of a neat challenge both to see if I could knit the hat in the weekend. And you do learn I had done some brioche patterns before, and I've done some two-color brioche, but I had not really done a lot of decreasing. So there's the crown, and I think so. It was good. It was well written as her patterns are. Just good amount of detail, and then just this syncopated switch is very, very cool to see happen. As all brioche patterns do, you feel like you knit forever because you're essentially knitting every row twice. But let me give you a little bit more about the pattern. So the pattern itself, so it was released in May 2025 and recommends spin cycle and Farmer's Daughter fibers yarns. And it is written for a worsted weight, but it is one that a lot of people, if you look through the pattern pages or project pages, did use hand spun yarn, which of course mirrors a lot the spin cycle look. The gauge is 20 stitches to 28 rows. I feel like I was just slightly off. Her recommended needle size is US 4 3.5 millimeter and US 5 3.75 millimeter for the main knitting. I think it was 4 for the cast on. I used I went down one needle size each, so I did my cast on with a US 3 3.25 and my main color with a US 4 3.5 millimeter. I'm a fairly loose knitter, and so it's pretty normal for me to go down at least one needle size for Andrea Mowry patterns. So I'm really, really pleased with that. So I knit the size 3. I have a 21-inch head circumference. My husband, I often have a hard time getting patterns for hats to fit him. He's 23 and a half circumference, and this hat actually fits both of us. So, probably some of that, and I did not measure my final gauge. So some of that's probably my knitting, but it doesn't look too big on me, and it doesn't look too small on him. So I think it's a really nice, forgiving pattern. So definitely would recommend that if you're looking for a quick win. You're probably not going to sit and try and knit it in 3 days. It was challenging in the weekend period. I didn't have anything going on, fortunately, that weekend, so it was easy for me to do, but kind of fun and just something a little bit different to do. So that is the Harlow Flip by Andrea Mowry. Next up, some of you all have been around through the saga of knitting this pullover, is the Móinéar pullover. This is a pattern by Ailbíona McLochlainn, who is an Irish knitwear designer. It was published in March of 2019. It recommended yarn weight is 8 wraps per inch, which they're calling an Aran. and the stitch gauge is 17 stitches and 23 rows to 4 inches in stockinette. Recommends a US 8 needle 5 millimeter. I knit my pattern with a US 7, and I used just 10 yards over 1,000 yards total in the in as far as yardage, of course, yardage. I knit this with Woolly Mammoth Fiber Co. Natural DK. And the two colorways I use for my color work, I have Glitter Cracklin'. This was one of her kind of limited runs for the, it was like a fall, late summer, early fall, probably early fall shop update. It's got these just beautiful speckles. These are bundle dyed, I think would be how you would call it. So she had laid the skein out and put flowers and rolled it up and steamed it. And I fell in love with it the minute I saw it. Had to have it. It probably, for this pattern, as you'll see on the designer's page, for this pattern is probably this is extremely low contrast option. So my main color was this Pearlescence, which actually is coming through a little bit. There's a lot, you can see a little bit of this variation. You get these sort of watercolor. There's a lot more variation here than is coming across. You kind of get this, you'll see it looks tan and then a little pink and then a little blue, and I think they're so pretty together. The makeup of that yarn is 50% Cheviot and 50% Blue Face Leicester. So 100% UK wool. And here she is. It's the front. Here's the back. I have not done my final try-on shots, to be honest, but it is fully blocked. I've had it sitting here waiting for you all. I don't get a very good angle, I guess. But you can see it's a pretty low contrast. Color work is fun. You get some interesting detail in the collar and the cuffs. And again, you can see a little bit of the variation in that pearlescent that it's so pretty in person. I'm reasonably happy with how it turned out. There's still a little more fabric in the back, but I kind of adjusted, and I could have ripped out again, but I wasn't going to, so it's done. And I will do a try on, or hopefully I'm popping some photos in here. So what else can I tell you? So this is a DK weight, obviously, fabric. I knit the size 4. My upper bust measurement is 40 inches, and my full bust measurement at that time was 46. It's probably a little bit less than that now. And waist is about 43. So I aimed for about 4 inches of positive ease. I had a lot of positive ease on the top. You'll see when I put it on, it's very fitted. I actually did not. I decreased a lot, and I did not increase more out. And then I did, I just felt like it needed that one more little blip of color, so I added 1 round of knitted. I don't think I didn't knit and purl. I think I just knit, and then I bound off, and I did want it pretty stretchy, but what I did was I did a yarn over, knit the knit, then I did the purl, and I passed both the yarn over and the knit stitch over, and then the purls I did not do the yarn over on. So I had every other stitch had a yarn over to add that little bit of extra stretchiness. But really pleased with how it turns out. The yarn is, you've heard me gush about it now several episodes. So if there is, I talk about it in pretty good detail in the episode 2 or maybe even 4 back from here, sequentially. So you get a little bit more of the knitting journey in that. But that is the Móinéar by Ailbíona McLochlainn. I'm really pleased with how that has come out. So those are my 2 finished objects. So on to works in progress. I actually have 4 main works in progress to talk about today. 3 are more or less new cast-ons, and 1 is kind of a hibernated knit that I pulled out of the vault. So I'm trying to finish up some of my older whips, and I'm making progress there. So we will start with talking about the Phoebe top, which is a pattern by Amiee Sher. And this pattern has a, let's see, really nice size range, and she has in this pattern an option to do straight or a curvy version. So I'm doing the curvy version, and I'm actually a little bit between, my gauge was a little bit off, so I am knitting the size C curvy option for that. So I cast on with a US 2.5 3mm needle to get me a little more weight at my hip, and then I switched to a US 2.75mm for the main body fabric. So the pattern is knit flat, which the way that this works, what's the only complicated part, and I did a silly thing. When I cast on, I knit I'm reading it, and I'm putting like 1,000 stitch markers in. And like where, anyway, and I'm knitting it where I should have been knitting and purling because it's written out in words, and then it moves to a chart. If I had just pre-read the pattern a little bit, I could have avoided that problem, but I ended up, not a big deal. But what point is, once you get past, so you do your ribbing, and you're knitting that flat, and then you're establishing the cable pattern, I think actually on the back side. But once the cable pattern's established, I do have some stitch markers in because there's some bigger cables, and that's the only reason they're in there, because you just literally read your knitting for the first, however many inches that you need to knit for your size. So it's kind of a really nice take-along project. So it has these smaller cables interspersed with some wider cables. And you're only cabling, like every 8 rows or something like that. So I am enjoying it a lot. I will say, so anyway, at some point I gotta partially up the first panel, and I'm like, why am I knitting this flat? And then I'm going to seam it together. So no, I didn't talk about this. Is my Daisy Said bag. So Daisy Said, which is a number of my project bags are that maker. Anyway, so I knit it about, I think I have a lifeline in. Yeah, you can see my lifeline is here. So I knit both panels to the, like the second small cable cross. And then I kind of thought, well, and like knitting it flat is not a big deal. It's the same amount of knitting and purling, whichever way you do it. And it's not hard, and you're not having to do anything. All your cables are on your front side. But I just thought, I just don't have to seam it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And it was more about keeping the panels even though, like, it's pretty easy to count the cables. I just went ahead, put a lifeline in. I got to the same point of both, put a lifeline in and joined them. And then I went ahead and seamed up my, my lower seam, which is here, just to make sure that would look fine. And then what I did is it was 2 purl 2 purl stitches that you would have had to mattress stitch, so I've eliminated that down to 1 purl stitch. I just basically knit the 2 together, and I've been carrying 1 up. So we'll see if that causes me heartache, and I know it'll be flat again at the top, but that's fine, and that's with the way the pattern's written anyway, so I think it'll be fine, and this will just kind of keep me on track. Now I will say, where it was feeling like, woo, I was making progress, this feels like a really long, size 2, stitches. It feels like a long time around for each round, but that's fine. I am using one of the recommended yarns, which is Wool Dreamer's Sayona. And this is a 50% wool, 50% cotton blend. I don't like knitting with cotton or crocheting or doing anything else with full cotton. This is very, very nice. It is not hard on my hands at all. It has a nice amount of give to it. I live in eastern North Carolina, so fairly warm, good part of the year. So I'm hoping it's a nice balance. I can wear fingering weight wool, but when it's 98 and 90% humidity it's a little sticky. So I'm hoping this is a nice balance. So I'm really excited to get this worked up and see how it wears in our climate. And between this and the wool bamboo, I'm really interested in blends of wool fibers for our climate. So you'll see that as a theme kind of with some of my other summer planned cast-ons as well. So that is the Phoebe top by Amiee Sher. My next finished object is the Cutting Edge Vest, which is also a pattern by Ailbíona McLochlainn. So I've gone full back into fall winter with this one. I really was just craving casting on something new after I finished the Harlow flip. And this is a vest pattern or slip over pattern that is fully steeked. So I've done a steeked shawl and some steeked cardigans, but I've never done the armhole or the neckline. So this has a steeked neckline and steeked arms. I'm knitting the size 4 in this pattern, which is for a bust circumference of 42.5 inches. The gauge for this, and I did get gauge. I did do a gauge swatch. I will give you evidence because I'm not a gauge swatcher. But what I wanted to do with this pattern, I also have some Pullover, and I wanted to try knitting with the Pullover, which I've never done. So I took one of my cakes. I followed some directions from some other folks that I've watched, and I wound it into balls, so I'm just loosely pulling from the side. If you're not familiar with Pullover, this is an unspun Icelandic fiber. So being unspun, it's a relatively, if you pull on it, it's gonna pull off there. So typically it's used in multiples. You can use it singly. And once you knit it up, it's very, very secure. So I will say, because you kind of twist a little bit, it's got a very long fiber staple. So the sheep's fleece is fairly long. So it's pretty hard to break, anyway. I have, maybe knock on wood, I have not had any trouble with it tearing. Now I'm a pretty loose knitter, and the reason I gauge swatch, 2 things. Because it's a steeked garment, you absolutely cannot try it on. And the other reason is because I've never worked with the Pullover, and I wasn't sure how fragile it would be. And my colorway, I think, is B761, this kind of pretty mid-gray maybe. So I really just wanted to experiment again. So I knew it would be knit in the round, so I did swatch in the round. I was not concerned about steeking the Plotalopi. I know it's a good sticky wool, but I swatched in the round. I kind of left a space. I was on a magic loop. I kind of left a space, and then I cut. I blocked it and cut it. This is totally unreinforced. And it's not going anywhere. I will probably needle felt the actual steeks in the garment, but yeah, it's nice. It's working up really nicely. It feels very sturdy once it's knit. I thought it would be scratchier, I have to be honest. I mean, you hear a lot about that, and I'm spinning some local Icelandic that's very lovely and soft. I think I could wear it next to skin. It's not as soft as, like the sweater I just knit, but it's not as rough as I thought it would be. So I'm enjoying that. It's, give you a little peek here because it's very unusual. You cast on, and you're casting on the back of the neck, kind of the back of the neck, and a couple of stitches that would be that'll eventually be the shoulder and the front piece. I mean, a couple, not to give away the pattern. And if I don't make a liar out of myself and tear my yarn after I said it wasn't giving me any problem. And then you put a steek in. So you put a steek in here in the front, and you're increasing initially these shoulder stitches, and then you put in steeks for, these are the two little arm steeks. See my little, there, there's my two arm steeks. So it looks like it would never fit anything, right? But and then she's got a clever way that she's put the steek stitches in. So that's the two arm steeks that will be cut and folded back, and this is the neckline steeks. Obviously, you're going to get more space than this little thing that makes you want to panic. There, this way. So, and you can see the back of the neck is raised some. It's very cleverly done, but it's all just knit in the round and increases to this point. And I think I'm getting past most of the shaping. So I'm excited to just it was just different. I've never tried that sort of construction. So just really wanted to do that. And I was so excited that I got gauge on my swatch, which, with the recommended needle. I've knit a few of her patterns, and I don't, so this is my third one, I think, and I usually have to still go down a needle size. I think I was kind of on the cusp on the Saglen, but anyway, so I'll be interested to see. I think some of that might be the property of the Plotalopi being quite sticky, and I will say I am having to really watch as I'm knitting, one, to make sure I'm catching both strands, and because it's so hairy, it's a dual coated sheep, so it's got hair and the shorter fibers. It catches itself, kind of similar to when you're using a mohair or something. You get you have to really kind of make sure you got that whole stitch through, or it'll be too tight when you go around. So I'm having to be a little more deliberate, I'm a little worried. I feel like that really came through. I had this same concern when I knit the Saglen too, that this feels very puckery, but I think the way, and I've stretched it out on a cord, and I think the way that it actually lays on the shoulder, this is not a very good representation, it's going to be fine. I had that with the Saglen as well, and I think it relaxed a little bit also with blocking. So anyway, so going to town on that. We'll have more to report on that method, but I think it's really fun. The Plotalopi is very reasonably priced, so I think it's a really good, again, for number of people probably you want it to be a t-shirt or something under it, which this would be as a vest. So I'm excited about that. So that is the Cutting Edge Vest by Ailbíona McLochlainn. Before I move to my next whip, I guess I should mention everything I talk about. If you go to the show notes and do the drop-down details more, I do pretty comprehensive. There's a link to my Ravelry page. There's links to any of the shops that I mention or products that I mention. And if I ever forget anything or you have additional questions, my email is listed there too. Please do not hesitate to reach out. And as always, would love for you to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Give a like if you like the comment or the content, and share with a friend would be great. Really trying to get to that next little count in my subscribership. So any help there is appreciated, and I love to have comments from you all. Let me know what you're working on, comments on the project, other experiences you've shared, and I have questions there, and I do respond to all of the comments. So also with the steeking, if you're new to steeking, I believe my very first video was steeking my woodlark shawl, so you can see that. You'll laugh at how long it takes me to cut that. My next ones were not quite so bad. And then I have a separate steeking video for the Victory cardigan, which is a pattern by Corinne Tomlinson? I think it's Tomlinson, of the Woolly Thistle. And I've recorded that, the steeking of that, as well as I put a ribbon down the inside of the steek. So there's just a couple of references. I will try to put one of those at the end of the video and link the others in the show notes below if that's interesting for you. So moving on to my next work in progress. So my daughter has been knitting for maybe just under 2 years now. Finally, I've talked her into trying socks. So I cast on just a simple pair of DK weight socks to kind of walk through the sock making process with her. So these are my kind of vanilla recipe mostly. So I do a Turkish cast on for the toe, just standard, increase every other round, and then knit up the foot. I am trying on this one the slip stitch pattern that you see in some of the socks now to see. On this, I'm not feeling like it's making any difference. And these are kind of house socks anyway. They already feel like they're a little bit on the loose side. But I think these are 48 stitches. And then I will do a shadow wrap heel. And I use the Chili Dogs, Ellen of the Chili Dog, her tutorial. She has a 2-part tutorial on the shadow wrap heel. I've done that for years before it was popular or I knew anybody else did it. So that's the one I'm teaching my daughter. I do knit on 9-inch circulars. So I cast on with the magic loop and then I move to 9-inch circulars as soon as it's feasible because I do not like to knit magic loop. And interestingly, my daughter has picked up that same. So the yarn is, I believe this was yarn to dye for the base wool, Highland, I think it's just Highland DK. And then I dyed this in one of my early dye experiments with food color. So it's held up nicely. I've got a number of different skeins, so I think it's working out kind of pretty. And then just the natural base color for the toe, heel, and likely cuff. These will probably be ankle-ish length. This is in a bag from Allegheny Fiber Arts. So I am very, very, I have some bags that are not sheep themed, but most of them are. This one has got a divider, and then it has also this outside zipper pocket and a nice handle. So this is just it's a nice one for socks or small, obviously small project, but it's nice to keep the two skeins separate in the bag. So, and that outside pocket holds a surprising amount, and I actually really do like, her website might be on there. Yeah, there we go. I bought this at the Southeastern Animal Fleece and Fiber Festival, SAF, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Because it was two ago, we didn't have the last one. So that is my vanilla DK socks. My last work in progress is one that I pulled out of the vault. This is from 2 years ago. The bag has a pen 2 years ago from Maryland Sheep and Wool. This is in a, oh my gosh, this is, I Heart You, Laura, up in something Isle, Canada. I'm sorry, Laura, I'm not remembering, but anyway, I will link her stuff. She is my absolute favorite style of project bag. I've got 2 of her bags, and if I could do 10, I would. I very much like a drawstring bag. This has a nice heft to the lining, but not overly stiff. I mean, it's flexible. It's got these box bottom. You can see I have a yellow lab. Anyway, and it's got pockets that line the inside as well. So in here is my Habitation throw, which is a pattern by Helen Stewart. It's a pattern that is probably familiar to many, many people. The gauge should be 15 stitches, 36 rows to 4 inches. It's a garter stitch. I started off, I had some minis. I had some leftover yarn that wasn't really minis, but I wound them up, and I think I started off with like Magic Ball, Magic Cake, right? Just, which is have done, so I'm not really joining. At some point I decided to increase longer than is in the pattern. I'm now paying for it because it's the blanket that will never end. It was somewhere along the way it became, I'm going to give this to a friend for grandbaby, and I still haven't finished it. So like and you can see how big this has gotten. So I am down to, my needles, it's still wider than my needle stretches. And it was a boy, so like you can see, here's my cast on end, is a little more pinky and pastel-y. And some of these are ruby and roses, some of it's just leftovers from socks. Some of it is, I was in row 1 mini club for a while, so some of it's various row 1 minis. It's a real simple, I'm not being very, sometimes I go the recommended amount between the eyelet rows, sometimes I don't, sometimes I forget. You do this really nice slip stitch I-cord edge as you go, so when you're done, you're done. I think you start with 3 stitches or 5 stitches, something like that, and I'm working my way back down. So anyway, I've just decided it's time to get on with this one. If I just do, a section a day, hopefully I can get it done. And not too distant future, get it to its new home, and free up a project bag to boot. So win-win. Anyway, it's a fun pattern. I do find I just am not a fan of garter stitch. It's not hard, but I don't enjoy it. I find it more fiddly than just knitting, or even doing, I'd rather even do ribbing, I think. I find in like the yarn over rows, I just find it going in and putting those two together in garter for some reason is harder than I think it should be. So, but anyway, Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart. just want to talk a little bit about the Tees and Tanks make-along. So this is a make-along that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks now. And just going to be a very casual make-along, and I extended it to be tanks and tees rather than summer tees or summer tanks because I was trying to be a little more inclusive to the Southern Hemisphere watchers, thinking that, you know, tees and tanks are something you can wear, you know, layered and kind of year-round. So hopefully that opens that up a little bit. I think it's going to be very small. It's going to be very casual. You can use your works in progress. Official kickoff was June 1, and I'm going to run it through the end of August. And I'll probably at the end of each month, I'll either through the podcast or some on Instagram, probably through the podcast, we'll do some pattern giveaways, I think, just to kind of have a little fun in there. But I would love to have you all use the hashtag Tanks and Tees MAL. And I think we're also, Susan from Wild Cottage Knitting, or Wild Cottage Ireland, I guess, is, I think, going to do some collaboration with me as well. I know she's participating, as well as, I think, Amanda from Yarns and Brews and a few other folks. So I've heard from a few of you. I will be glad to start up a Instagram chat if that's something that interests you. If it gets much larger, you know, we can look at another platform, but right now for the size, I think that'll be kind of the easiest way to go. So just send me a direct message on Instagram. That will be the easiest way for me to add you to that. And then we're going to try to do a couple of Zoom meetups through the 3 months. So we've got some time. We'll try to figure out to catch European, and I know I've got some Australian watchers, so we'll try to figure out between Susan and I, you know, maybe a couple of different times that work, so that folks are not all. It's hard to catch the whole globe, but we'll do the best we can. And if you are in one of the further countries from me and want to collab and run a Zoom as well. Just reach out and let me know, and we'll do that. I'd love to have it be a nice, fun community event. So I've picked 5 more patterns to give you a little inspiration. I know there are a ton of summer inspiration videos. So except for one, and I'll explain why, I've tried to pick ones that I don't think I've really seen on other podcasts, just to give a nod to some of these other designers. And, you know, maybe some things that you hadn't seen before. I know that when I watch those inspiration videos, I mean, of course, you're going to see some of the really popular ones, and I've got one of mine too. But you're going to see, yeah, I like to see some different things that I wouldn't have seen, and I've gotten some ideas from that. So I have created a Ravelry bundle. That link is in the show notes. And you can go in, and all of these plus many, many, many others are in there. Susan sent me a few crochet. I have very few crochet. I'm not a crocheter. I have tried to pick some up as I've watched some of the other folks, but if you've got some favorite patterns, knit or crochet, I would invite you to comment down in the comments, and I will be glad to add them to the bundle as well. And again, I like to kind of make sure we're getting good representation of the different designers out there as well. So the first pattern I wanted to share with you today is the Tasca Sport. This is a pattern by Laura Nelkin. I've knit a shawl by Laura Nelkin, and I have a couple of other of her patterns in my queue. And this pattern, like several of her others, she has just some really interesting construction. So this one has these really cute, it's got a nice kind of square neckline. Looks like it is knit vertically, at least on that front and back panel. So that's different. And then it's got a neat join there with some, I think that's moss stitch. It is a sport weight pattern, 20 stitches and 32 rows to 4 inches or 10 centimeters. and the yardage is 535 to 1930 yards, or 489 to 1765 meters. Recommended needle is a US 4, and that comes in 9 sizes. So yeah, it is work sideways, it is work flat, and that sideways construction, she has a number of patterns on, and that's kind of what attracted me to it, because I've been wanting to try that with her one of her jackets. So I think this is quite interesting. She actually has this in multiple versions, so she's got a bundle there listed as well, and she does run knit along threads in Ravelry for most of her patterns. So the pattern sample is all that good. Some people have done short crop length, as you've seen in the picture, the inspiration picture, and some have done it more of a tunic length. So that is the Tasca Sport by Laura Nelkin. Next pattern, also somebody that with a little bit more unusual construction methods, often steeked, and I'm not sure if this one is, let's see if this one says, and this is the Duntara, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Jennifer Beale. Jennifer is a Canadian designer. So this, if you are craving, I've heard a few podcasters saying, oh, I just had to cast on something because I was craving some color work. Here is your stranded color work in a summer weight. So, and it's combined with that little bit of lace. I just think it's so pretty. It's got an I-cord edging. It's just got a nice flowy, looks like you could wear it tucked, wear it untucked. This is definitely high on my list, and I think doing color work in a summer weight yarn is a really, in fact, the recommended yarn is Quince & Co. Sparrow, which I believe is linen. So it's quite interesting. So I encourage you to check that out, as well as our other patterns. She has some really interesting construction methods and some lovely patterns. I think she's definitely a under recognized designer. She just has some beautiful things. So that is the Duntara by Jennifer Beale. The next pattern in mine is a very popular pattern, or recently released by a very popular designer, and that is the Lusk tee by Rebecca Clow. If I get to where I can find mine, here we go. So I talked about the Tolsta tee last time, which is another one. It's a yoke construction. This is a drop shoulder construction. And I just think this one's worth throwing in because DK weight, if you're looking for a quick knit. You can use a wide variety of yarns depending on what climate you're in. And this has a short sleeve and a long sleeve version. So I think that's quite nice. But the pattern support, and I bought this one, so she, as she does with many of hers, this comes in, you can do it in DK weight or fingering weight, long sleeve or short sleeve, and she includes a number of ways to modify it. So stripes, eyelets, small stripes, plain, and you'll see that throughout the testers projects as well. And just think it looks like it's a very nice fitted basic tee. So I actually, she knit the black and white one that I think I'm showing here, or I think I will be showing here, in Drops Bell, which I have never used. And I was recently introduced to a website that it makes it easy for us to get drop spell in North America. That's Linda Hobby, not sponsored. But I did look on their website. This is extremely reasonably priced. I mean, I think it's under $3 for a 50-gram ball. It is natural fiber. I think it's, there's maybe viscose in it, but that's still a natural fiber, wool viscose. So wool cotton viscose, I believe, is the blend. So I've ordered the black and white, 3 balls of each. I mean, I'm coming out. I actually placed an order for 6 balls of the drop spell and 6 balls of bamboo by, I'm not remembering the maker, but also an all-natural fiber, but 50% cotton, 50%, no, wool bamboo. And like the whole order with $4 flat shipping was, $4.99 flat shipping was under $31. So that is extremely reasonable for a summer knit, and it just gives me a chance to try some new different yarns. Yeah, so I did want to include that one because I just think there's a lot of good versatility there. I think basic tees, right? Okay, the next two I have are actually crochet patterns, and I believe both of these came to me from Susan of Wild Cottage, Ireland, who has a lovely podcast. She recently kind of vlogged as she was at Black Sheep Farm during their lambing season, and just you always get a little bit of nature, and she's knits with beautiful colors and has some different pattern designers than I've seen and heard. So really encourage you to check out her channel. But anyway, so she has helped us with some crochet patterns because I did not have very many. And so the first one I have is the Boxy Blooms Cardigan. And this is a pattern by Rachel Misner. I'm hoping that's correct. I noticed as I looked through here, so this is just a cute, kind of a button-up, cardi, shell. You know, it looks like you could wear it over a tank top or a t-shirt, but it's just summery, kind of boho vibe. It was recently published, May of 2025. DK weight yarn. Crochet gauge, 17 stitches and 7.5 rows in 4 inches. So that's a recommended 4mm or G hook size. And this one was knit out of Lion Brand Kobu. So I believe that is a cotton bamboo wool as well. So kind of boxy V-neck. I think it's very unusual to find, like you don't see as many V-neck patterns, so I think that's very cool. There is a paid-for pattern through Ravelry, and she also says that there's a free pattern can be found in her blog, and that's on the Ravelry page as well. You can buy a kit from Lion Brand if that's of interest to you, and I believe this is the one, I think there was tutorials. I made a note that as I read through that there are tutorials. Full tutorial is available on her YouTube channel. So I would encourage you to check that out. If you do any crochet, or even if you don't, I looked through her other patterns as well, and I think I even put a few more in my bundle. She has a lot of really, like, this is not your old style, you know, inflexible granny square. I mean, I know granny squares are very popular, and I have nothing against granny squares. But anyway, there's some very modern, fresh looking garment designs. So definitely would encourage you to take a look at her if you're a crocheter, you're probably familiar because I don't think there's so many big names. But definitely take a look at it there. And nice if you haven't crocheted a garment that you've got pattern support for this one as well. So that is the Boxy Blooms Cardigan by Rachel Misner. So the last pattern recommendation I have for today is the Flora t-shirt. This is by Evelyne Fortier. I just thought this was a very cute kind of boho chic. Again, this was, I believe this is one that Susan recommended to me. Suggested yarn here is Patent North America Grace yarn, and that's a sport weight, 18 stitches and 12 rows to 4 inches on the gauge. says the Flora Tulip t-shirt is a perfect addition to spring or summer wardrobe. So it's kind of lightweight. You get a little bit of that. The difficulty is advanced, beginner to intermediate. Has some good directions to it. So I thought that was just she also had a few patterns on her pattern page that I added to the bundle. Just again, some fresh design perspective and not your kind of old school crochet. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. So there's some good information in there on picking it. Not a lot of patterns in there, but it has a nice fit. It's got a low scoop neck, so you've got some variation ability on the sleeve length. Kind of looks like a drop shoulder style. And then she had some really cute, there's a polo shirt in there and some others that are really cute. So that is all of the inspiration. Hopefully give you some different designers to look at for your summer knitting. And I really hope that you will join in the Tees and Tanks make along. So give me a message or send me an email. I'll be glad to add you to the thread if it gets big enough or folks are desire to put it over on Discord or another platform. I would be glad to do that, and hopefully we'll get a couple of Zooms here in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on that. Probably I'll put that on YouTube and on Instagram. The last thing I have, I believe I will be able to, I've had some changes going on in work and home life, so I believe I'll be able to upload with more regular, probably weekly frequency. I have normally, not always, but I've been alternating between uploading on Tuesdays or Saturdays. I feel like there's an awful lot of folks that upload on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If you have an opinion, I'd be really curious to know, like, what catches your attention as a subscriber. If you subscribe, or if you don't, certainly subscribe, put on notifications. I greatly appreciate the engagement there. But just if there's a better day than others, or a day that, like, hey, I really wish it would come out on such and such, I just would be curious to know as I'm kind of trying to make that decision. And then I will try to bounce around with my works in progress so you're not seeing the same thing every week. I think my next episode will be probably fairly fiber and spinning heavy because I've got quite a number of spinning finished objects that I have tend not to put on my knitting podcast on. I'll probably start blending those in a little bit more, but have a lot going on in that space as well. And then I've got some machine knitting also projects going on, so some of that up and coming to an episode near you. But with that is all for me today. I thank you so much for joining me. Please leave a comment. I'd love to know what you're working on, what you're thinking about for your summer or winter knitting plans if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Do hope you join the make along, and wish you happy knitting, spinning, dyeing, and weaving. Bye, y'all.